You're listening to the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast, episode 119. 5 things you probably didn't know about external exams, how they work, how they're marked, and how your teen can turn them to their advantage. I'm Katie Jones, and with over 15 years in education as an award-winning high school teacher, international external examiner, and as a study coach, I've helped thousands of students skyrocket their results and confidence. And this podcast is where I share all my insights, tactics, and tips with you, the parent, so you can help your hardworking teen get happy, smart, and successful in their study, and have you both enjoy the journey along the way. This is the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast. Hey VIPs, how are things? I hope you and your teens are doing really well and are feeling good as we hurtle towards the end of the year. I am on a high and a low right now, both coming from hitting the end of the external exam marking that I have been doing. A low just because it is pretty exhausting, and I'm literally recording this the evening after finishing in the morning of getting to the end of the queue of papers. And I am looking forward to an early night, not before, a glass of wine and some television, which I have not done at all for 10 days since I started the marking. But I'm also on a high because it has been such a useful experience. And I say this every year, but there have been so many takeaways that I really want to share with you and your teens, which leads me to a couple of announcements that I want to make before we dive into the episode. So first, if you're here listening to this episode because you really want to help your teen with how they approach and prep for and perform in their exams in future, either technically in terms of their actual exam technique or mentally in terms of reducing their stress and anxiety, then I have a special and free event that I have created as I have been doing this exam marking this year that you will definitely want to attend. It's my 2024 Crack the Exam Code webinar. I'm going to be delivering it live on Wednesday, the 27th of November, 2024. So if you are listening to this before that date, or even before Monday, the 2nd of December, when the replay will be available until, be sure to get in on this. It is totally free, and you can register at www.greattransformation.com/code, CODE, for Crack the Code. This event has started to become a bit of an annual tradition now, where I share my discoveries and insights and hot off the press tips from that round of external exam marking that I have just completed and that I complete each year for external exam boards. I always include brand new content, hot off the press information, concepts, insights relating to the specific issues and real life examples that I have seen and experienced and really need students and parents to know about. That is not anything subject specific. It is all universal in terms of technique, concepts, skills, strategies that can be applied to all different types of questions for any subject. In fact, there's even something that I discussed back in 2021 off the back of my exam marking that year that would have been super relevant for students sitting the paper that I just marked. So, off the back of that little memory trigger for me, what I've also done is gone back and dug out all of my old exam marker video diaries. Yes, this is what I used to do. I have 6 years worth of them, and I'm going to gift the full collection to all live attendees at the webinar. Please do not judge my selfie setup in these videos. Don't look at the lighting. Don't take any notice of what things look like. The content is gold. The video quality, probably not so gold. It's an examiner video diary. It is not a Netflix series. Though you may want to binge it like Netflix. There's so much good stuff in there. So here's where to go to get registered for the free Crack the Exam Code 2024 webinar, where I will be giving away that compilation of all of my past video diaries for free as well to all live attendees. So here's where to go and get registered for the webinar, www.gradetransformation.com/code. And that is where I'm going to be giving away that whole compilation of Exam Marker video diaries to all live attendees. Now, there will be a replay sent out to registrants. So even if you cannot make it live, still register and we'll send you the replay so you can get all of the main content of the webinar. That will be available until Monday, the 2nd of December. So still go to that webpage, even if you're getting to this after the live, but before the 2nd of December, and you'll be able to access it there. Okay, second thing, I'm just going to quickly address a question that I get a lot at this time of year, and this year is no different, about the 10-week grade transformation program. That's because I'm going to be making a special offer invitation on the webinar to get in on the program, get this training with a couple of extra special bonuses included. Now, if you're new to the podcast and me and Rock Solid Study, first, welcome. It's really good to have you here. And second, if you don't know, the 10WGT, the 10-week grade transformation program, is my flagship program where I train students in the skills and strategies to have them apply their subject knowledge to the way that the question is asking, the assignment or essay requires, and the mark scheme and assessment criteria demand. It includes exam technique, time management, organization, essay strategy, revision and exam prep, and a little bit of mindset too, specifically in relation to things like stress, procrastination, and how to solve for those at the root cause, not just trying to alleviate the symptoms with meditation or relaxation or breathing techniques. Those are very temporary, and they don't stop the stress or anxiety coming back in future. So the question that always comes up in lots of emails at this time of year, before the summer holidays, that is, here in the Southern Hemisphere, the question is it better for my teen to do the 10-week grade transformation program over the summer break while they have more time to actually do it and can give it their full attention? Or is it better for them to do it in the new year, during term time, when school goes back, so that they actually have their own tasks and study that they can use examples from or apply the training to directly and immediately? Or it's something to that effect. And here, down under, we're about to embark on the big summer break. But wherever you are and whenever you have a break or a long extended holiday coming up, this is still a super relevant thing to consider. Because here's my answer. It depends. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you there. I am going to give you the specific as to what it depends on. It depends on your teen and their schedule. So if your teen is often really busy during term time with homework and assessments, with co-curricular activities, sport, music, community activities, in a way that would make them feel like doing the 10WGT during term time would just add more stress, rather than it being the key to alleviating any stress. And maybe they wouldn't perhaps be able to get it all done, or they wouldn't be able to give it as much attention as you or they would like to, then doing the program over the summer is absolutely a great idea. Because not only will they have the brain space and time to do it, it means that they'll have all of the tools and techniques ready to go to make the next school year so much smoother and actually help them gain time back each week by making their study way more efficient and effective, because it's going to minimize all of that procrastination, any confusion around what to do or how to start, any false starts and redos, never-ending edits and changes, trying to hit the criteria or get within the word count. But the flip side is that, of course, they won't have those tasks or essays or exams or questions to practice on immediately. Now, of course, I include lots of real-life examples and practices and demos in the program, but obviously they will be exactly that. They'll be examples and practices. It won't be things that they are actually working on themselves. So, on the other hand, if you feel that your teen would be more engaged and more likely to stay committed to the program if they are doing it alongside their everyday study and their own assessments, then definitely waiting until the new school year or waiting until term 1 would be better. Some students do take on the concepts and training when everything is actively happening around them. But of course, that does mean that they're going to be adding that to their schedule, which is probably going to be busier than during the holidays. Now, it's only an hour a week, which I do believe is doable for anyone. For those who tell me that they just can't fit it in, I do like to suggest that if they were to be given £1 million or $1 million, if they completed it, would they then be able to fit it in? I'm pretty sure they likely would. But I do know that life is busy, which is why everything is broken down into smaller tutorials. They don't have to sit there for a full hour. The chunks are around 7 to 13 minutes. So they could just find 4 lots of 15 minutes or whatever works best for them. But that is my answer. When is the best time to do it? Depends on your teen and their diary or their commitments. But those are the 2 scenarios of how I would help you to decide what most resonates or best fits with your teen. Important note, just don't let yourself slip through the cracks if it's not an obvious answer. If you know that your teen could benefit from this training, having those skills, those tools, the techniques, then just make the decision on what you think is slightly better than the other option. And please know that there will never be a totally perfect time for anything, for anyone in life. Which is why I've actually put together the special invitation for the 10-week program that I will share at the end of the webinar, where I'm going to include some extra bonuses that will give your teen a massive boost in terms of their study and exams. And you can get your teen enrolled into that special offer, but you can also decide whether you want to have them start straight away and do the program over the break, or you can email us with a date that you would like their enrollment to start. And we'll do a delayed start so that they get their 12 weeks access on a date of your choice and still get all of the inclusions from the special offer. So, final shout out: to get any or all of that, you're going to need to make sure that you're registered and come to the webinar. Get your access link emailed to you by registering at www.greytransformation.com/code. CODE. Okay, now let's dive into today. As a bit of a precursor to the webinar, I thought that here I would give you 5 things that you probably don't know about external exams and how they work and what's really involved with them. So number 1 is that exams are not just testing subject knowledge. They are testing your teen's ability to convey specific knowledge or apply specific skills in the way that the question demands and the mark scheme requires, in the time allowed. Being able to stick within that time and get that across is part of the skill that's being tested. Most students tell me that they actually prefer coursework and assignments over exams. Not because they particularly love the tasks, they don't necessarily love writing an essay, but because they like having the time to craft their best work or their best writing, and they can review it and can improve it without feeling under too much time pressure. Now, of course, they have a deadline for the task, but they can spread their work out a little bit over a time frame, and they don't have to submit the first or even just the second thing that comes out of their brain and onto paper. And of course, it's the opposite in an exam. So being able to dissect the question, know precisely what it's actually asking, and predict the mark scheme so they know what's going to get marks and what won't, and then having the skills and strategies to actually create and craft that response first time, confidently and time efficiently, is going to make a huge difference to their exam confidence and their exam results. Number 2 is how the papers actually get written. Have you ever wondered who actually makes up the questions that end up on your teen's exam paper? How it gets decided, how many marks a question gets? Well, I definitely did, which is why after the first 4 years of my teaching, I decided to get involved with exam boards and become an external marker. And it's why over the years since then, I've been on writing panels and scrutiny panels and can therefore share a little bit of the behind the scenes of what actually happens. So the writing panel is where teachers Obviously, they must not be teaching that cohort or be sitting that paper because they kind of know what's going to be on the paper. But teachers and subject experts meet with the exam board subject leader and devise a collection of questions and generate sources or find stimulus items and draft the mark scheme. And this is all, of course, according to whatever topics they are to be examined. And within that, we have to ensure that we cover a range of command levels, usually a range of short and extended responses. For some subjects, of course, like English, there may only be extended response. And for others, there may be also things like multiple choice. All of this gets drafted, and then the exam board subject leader, the officer, creates the actual paper. And then that goes to scrutiny panel. Now, if you've been on the writing panel, you can't be on scrutiny, and vice versa, because this is where, again, a group of experienced teachers and subject experts work, this time without the exam board subject leader, because of course they wrote the draft that we're now scrutinizing. They meet and we basically do the whole paper. We independently each sit the exam and inspect it really carefully for things like, is it accessible? Does it presume knowledge that we shouldn't presume all students have? Is the wording accessible to everyone with a reasonable level of the language? Is it things like colorblind friendly? Is there any ambiguity to the wording of any of the questions? What range of knowledge is it testing? Do the command words align with the demands of the question and in the marking guide? Is the timing appropriate? Is there too much or too little for the time allowed? And we do also scrutinize that mark scheme. Are the marks divided appropriately? Does it align with the command and the question? Are there any jumps between criteria that are too big or too small? Are any of the questions essentially too hard or too easy? And then this goes through a very formal feedback and review process. Any changes are made, edits are actioned, and as you can imagine, all of that is a lengthy process. But there is a lot that goes into that process. And that's why I say to students that every word in every question and anywhere on that paper has been very intentionally chosen and selected and refined. So whatever it says, they need to be really good at interpreting it and understanding it, and do not overlook anything, which is why understanding and really being able to suss out and understand the wording of the question and how mark schemes are constructed and what the criteria in them really mean and what they actually look like in an answer are such important skills for students. I dedicate whole modules to this stuff, like Catapult 7, Conquering Command Words, and Catapult 10, Mastering Mark Schemes. Because once you have the concepts and systems to be able to truly understand and work with these things, it makes everything so much clearer and so much easier to figure out and respond to. So that is how the exam papers and mark schemes actually get written. And here's the thing that you may not know, number 3. How all of those papers actually get marked. What happens is they all get shipped off and then however many weeks later, they get their final grades. What happens to them in between? Now, I have been marking for external exam boards since 2010, and I have seen a lot of changes in terms of we used to literally get posted out big batches of papers and then had to take them to the post office when we'd mark them to get them posted back to the exam board, right through to now where they all just get scanned and we mark from home online. And I am sure that at some point there will be technology that means that us humans don't even do the marking, that something like AI will review the content on the paper and match it to the mark scheme. But here is what does not change. The way that mark schemes are applied, the rigorous training and understanding every year for each and every question and every criteria on that mark scheme, the quality assurance for checking that the marking is accurate. And on that note, because I get this question a fair bit from students and parents as well, how do we right now, while technology isn't taking over, how do we avoid human error? Because after all, we are not robots and we can miss things or misread things or just make an incorrect judgment, right? Well, firstly, that is one reason why I encourage every student to do a full post-mortem on every internal assignment or exam that they sit once they get it back. That they don't just look at the result and feedback and then brush it under the rug, because I've seen so many students find extra marks that got overlooked. Yes, even ones that I have marked, that they've come to me and said, actually, you've just said this. Should I not have got the mark for this? And I will look at it and make a decision. And sometimes it is yes, you actually should have done. And I will correct it, because I would always spend a whole lesson going back through any exam that my students sat. We would pull apart every question, and I would always say to them, hey, go through this with me. You're going to dissect this and scrutinize this as much as possible. And you're going to tell me if you think that I've missed something that should have got credit. And like I said, sometimes that will happen. And that's the reward that you get for being willing to do a full dissection on an assessment. And sometimes that 1 mark can be the difference between a whole grade boundary, which is why we do a huge amount of examiner training every year. We're doing 1 to 2 full days of learning and getting loads of practice in the mark scheme, applying that mark scheme accurately and consistently to real student responses. And it's often just on 1 section of a paper. We will sometimes do 2 full days of examiner training just on a couple of questions from a paper, so that we become experts in that section of the paper, which of course further improves consistency in the marking. And here's what everyone really wants to know, is that external exam papers all then get marked at least twice. They will get marked twice by 2 different completely sort of anonymous, unknown markers. And if there is a discrepancy between the 2 marks given, they will often then get marked a 3rd time. Plus, we as markers get monitored by the lead markers, who will check random selections of our marking as we go, or will check the marks that we give to what are called control papers. Papers that they have already marked and will show up on our screens. We don't know that they're control papers, but they will then make sure that our marks align with what they have already been predetermined to be. And you might ask, well, who checks the lead markers? We have chief markers. So your teen can be pretty confident that their paper is getting the attention and quality control that it deserves. Now, this leads me to number 4 on the list, and that is Chief Examiner Reports. Chief Examiner Reports are an absolute treasure trove of insights that I recommend every student and teacher should use, but most don't even know they exist. So what are they? Well, at the end of all the marking for a paper, all the data is analyzed for every question and how students went. And the chief marker looks at where students performed well and where they didn't and why. And they provide detailed feedback on how and why this happened and what students and teachers can take forward to give themselves the best chance of success for future students. And almost every exam board publishes these documents online for anyone to find and download. So tip, they might also be called retrospectives or just marking feedback. And they can be, I will say, a little bit heavy going, but they are totally worth the effort if you can dig in. So bonus tip, they are a huge help if your teen is using past papers and the mark schemes that go with them, and it can really help them to match those things up because it explains where marks were gained and where marks were lost and why. Now, I have direct links for all members to all exam board past papers and the chief examiner reports nationally and internationally, but you can absolutely go Google for them or step your way through exam board websites to find those online. But I highly recommend that you do go find at least one of these so your team can learn directly from the mistakes and the successes of others who have gone before them. And finally, number 5. This is such an important concept that I have a whole podcast episode dedicated to this. I will put the link into the show notes. And it is that exams are a game. They might not be fun like a game, but they are a game to be played. They have rules, they have strategies, they have a scorecard. And when your teen learns how to play that game, learns the intricacies and the tactics, then they are at a massive advantage. We can think about this in a few different ways. If we take a game like tennis, where we want to train before the match in the most effective ways. That's effective revision, active revision, and strategic exam prep. Use of past papers, strategic choice of questions to practice. That's how we get ourselves into the best shape possible. And we also want to be able to do things like predict what the other player is thinking, what move they're going to make. So we can read their language, their body language or the wording language, so that we can get into the best possible position to capitalize on that prediction and then return a winning shot. That would be predicting the mark scheme just by reading the question and knowing how to meet the top criteria in that response. What we don't want is to walk onto the court feeling nervous about the opponent and anxious about our skills or lack of them. And instead, we want to feel confident that whatever's going to get thrown at us, we have the tools and tactics and skills to confidently and quickly figure it out and respond powerfully. In a different example, if we took a game like chess, we want to make the smartest moves. That might be giving the most efficient and effective response, what I call most marks, least words. We want to plan our responses ahead. So that might be giving a really well-structured and planned extended response or essay. What we don't want is for this to be like a game of snakes and ladders, where it just comes down to luck. Luck of what questions come up or don't, and luck as to whether what your team writes in their answer matches the mark scheme. I really want your team to realize that there are ways to make winning this game a lot more likely and have a bigger win and have the game be a little bit more fun or at least way less stressful and way less not fun along the way. So if that sounds good to you and you would like my specific strategies, critical insights, most effective tips and actions in detail and with real life examples, then definitely get registered for the Crack the Exam Code webinar. Go to www.greattransformation.com/code and I will see you there. Have a brilliant rest of your week and I will see you back here soon. Take care. If you're ready to have your team achieve their best possible results with less stress, then I want to invite you to enroll them in the 10-week Great Transformation Program, where they're going to learn the key concepts, skills, and strategies to catapult their performance in assessments and exams. It's risk-free. They either achieve bigger and better results with a whole lot more confidence in 10 weeks, or we refund you in full. Just head over to www.rocksolidstudy.com/program and I'll see you there.